Welcome back to another video. We left off on this train that has some pretty good graphics, not gonna lie. I didn't want to believe that Ichinose had lied to me. Apparently we're looking for a guy called Akira. That's a generic name. And we decided to not go to our childhood friend because I'm not going for that route. If it comes to bite me in the butt later, oh well. On the other hand, the outskirts of Tokyo are a great location for the restaurants of a former scientist and an affordable one. I was just jumbled into a crowded subway car. With every minute, the idea seemed more and more stupid to me. Luckily, it didn't take long for most of them to leave the car. The train approached the outskirts of Tokyo almost empty. Who knows, maybe we'll run into Kagome. Here, the neat modern brick buildings largely gave way to 100-year-old wooden shacks. The scenery reminded me of my grandmother's village, where I had been a couple times as a kid. The houses clung to each other, as if preparing to resist a tsunami encroaching from the ocean. Judging by the looks of them, they'd managed once before. With mixed results, I'd never managed to find a single sign with a street name or building number. I tried asking people on the streets, "Excuse me?" But that was the lost cause. Almost every second house was either a restaurant or a shop. I could very well be looking for this Akira until late at night. Hey, you'll be fine, don't worry. You have all day. I fruitlessly barged into one restaurant after another. Ramen, sushi, ramen, some kind of fish. Fish. Well, figures. After all, I was on a waterfront. The strong smell of fish and not so fresh fish was starting to make me feel nauseous. I bought a can of beer and sat down on a bench to get some air and rest. Far to the east, at the horizon where the ocean met the sky, the first stars had already started to appear, while the mountains to the west were ablaze with the rays of the sunset. The sight was spellbinding. Maybe I didn't find Akira, but I certainly hadn't come here for nothing. The beer was running out and my soul begged me to get another can. Halt, I seem to have been having too much alcohol lately. Sent by a precise throw, the can departed for the nearest spin. Merry yells, ship horns, and the noise of the loading cranes were coming from the port. Languidly sprawled across the beach, I watched this human anthill. Watched hundreds of people drawn by their everyday problems walk past as they paid no attention to me. It was so good enough to run anywhere, to not have to live my life constantly suffocated by the stench of fish. No, I didn't feel superior or better than these simple workers. More like I was different, granted comprehension of the wisdom of existence. For a second, a familiar face flashed in the crowd. Was that just my imagination? No, that was definitely Kagome. I jumped up and headed after her. Alright, before we make any decisions. Hooray! Sometimes Kagome would appear several meters in front of me and then disappear behind people's backs. Finally, I jumped out to a relatively free part of the waterfront, but the girl had already vanished into thin air. But I was absolutely certain it wasn't just my imagination. It'd been Kagome I'd been chasing. The night fully closed in. I was aimlessly wandering the waterfront, all hope of finding Kagome gone. The streets grew empty. A cool, salty wind blew from the ocean, and the temperature fell abruptly. It was time to get going back. I was about to turn towards the station, but out of the corner of my eye caught a sight of Kagome, big bags in her hands, appearing in the brightly lit entrance to a shop. Hey. Hey! A restaurant, Gifts of the Sea. What an original name. The owner's name was written on a sign nearby, Akira Moriyuki. Well, dang me. Was this really the place? I jerked the door's handle, but it didn't give. It seemed the restaurant was closed today. What was I to do now? Knock? But who would I find in there? My Akira? What if it was just a coincidence? And what was Kagome doing here? There were more questions than answers, and the answers lay on the other side of this door. I knocked. The insides of the restaurant itself were dark, but a light blinked once on the second floor, which would have been the living area. Which means I'd been heard of, unless, of course, the inhabitants were all deaf. I knocked again. Hey! A rough male voice came from a couple meters from me. I turned my head and saw a policeman quickly walking towards me. What are you doing here? Standing, knocking at the door. Someone like this Akira, Moriyuki, or Kagome? My plan certainly couldn't make room for a trip to the police station, and I broke into a run in the direction of the station. I was in no danger of being shot at, and the full-bodied man of about 50 had no chance of catching up to me when I was running. After reaching the station, I stopped to catch my breath. Dang, what was that about? I guess that Akira, the owner of the restaurant, was somehow connected to Akira Shinji. But what did Kagome have to do with it? But I was so tired I only wanted to go home as fast as possible. After taking the train, I immediately fell asleep, and only by some miracle didn't miss my stop. There was a note under my door. Nikun, you disappeared again. Do you not want to talk to me? I'm worried, you know. What's going on with you lately? Call me. I'm done. Enough adventures for today. I said into the nothingness and crawled to the living room without even taking my shoes off. The same images surfaced over in my head. Kagome's frowning face at school, her silhouette vanishing into the crowd at the waterfront, her distant figure disappearing behind the door of the Gift of the Sea. I couldn't put the pieces of the puzzle together. The task was beyond me. Like in some trashy mystery novel, my life was ensnared by invisible threads, weaving themselves together into a deadly web. A strange note and frightening phone calls. My quiet classmate being connected to my father's work. What next? Was it about to turn out that Himitsu and Catherine were secret agents working for Japan and the USA respectively? The fridge was empty. There wasn't even a bowl of instant ramen in the cupboard. You should probably call her. The tone on the note was written seemed to have to leave me no choice. I took out the receiver and dialed her number. It took a while before my call was answered. Yes? Hi. Well, hello. I just wrote a note here. Sorry, I've been really busy lately. Lots of things to take care of. Connected to my parents. Or rather, I didn't have the strength to think of something relatively comprehensible. I didn't know. You could have told me. I didn't want to upset you. Do you think you aren't upsetting me by acting like this? Did something happen? Your parents? No, nothing bad happened. Just an old acquaintance showed up. Don't worry, it's not about debts or anything of the sort. Nothing bad's gonna happen to me. That's what I wanted to believe myself. You probably haven't eaten properly today at all. Himitsu asked to ignore my words. I guess. Alright, wait for me. A couple minutes later and Himitsu was in the kitchen preparing dinner. So, will you tell me what happened? Yeah, my father just had some unfinished business with his ex-colleagues, so I'm sorting it out. It's about his work, nothing interesting. I see. Sorry for not calling yesterday. Can't help it, I guess. I'm not lying, I'm just very tired. Aren't you gonna eat? No, it's not a good to eat a lot late in the evening. But it's good enough for me. Well, walking around starving isn't exactly great either. She smiled for the first time this evening. I picked up the chopsticks and threw myself at the food. Maybe you're not lying, but you're clearly not telling the whole truth. Huh? Something's going on with you, and it's not just about Keri-chan. And it hurts that you're hiding something from me. But you can't just keep everything inside. If only you could share it with someone. I've got no one to. And maybe that was true, but sometimes you want the truth, even if indeed the truth to keep far away. You know I tell you everything, and if I don't, it just means there's nothing to tell. I supported my lie with the nicest smile I was capable of. I want to believe you. And anyway, we've had nothing but melancholy around us here lately. That's not right. Let's go out somewhere. It's night. Well, I didn't mean now, tomorrow, or over the weekend. All right. She smiled and stood up. I'll go now, okay? When the door closed behind her, I let out a sigh and uttered, one thing after another. After finishing dinner, I remembered my tiredness, and my whole body seemed to turn to lead in an instant, my eyes closing as if by themselves. So we'll probably have the option to let her down again. Decisions. Should I let her down again? We shall see. After all, who doesn't want to do that? And now I'm just going to make saves on each and every save file. May as well. The morning came suddenly. Yesterday's tiredness seemed to have vanished as if by magic, even though I only managed to get 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I delightedly stretched and went to the kitchen. On the table lay a simple breakfast and a note. See you in school. I imagined Himitsu's displeased face and couldn't help but smile. It'd be funny if it wasn't so sad. She had a peculiar way to upset with me. What would have happened if I did something really bad? Would she make pork instead of a 3-course meal? On the other hand, this was a pretty sad state of affairs, but there were more important things to worry about now. Today, I definitely had to talk to Kagome. I walked down the street, tossing up and catching a red apple Himitsu had left behind. It could just turn out to be my last food until evening. Yep. Thoughtfully, I walked through the schoolyard. Suddenly, joyful shouts coming from the pool reached my ears. Someone was clearly happier with life than me. Who was it, I wondered. I slowly approached the fence and hid behind bushes. Splashing around in the pool was the parallel class. There was nothing interesting to it, and I was about to leave for the school building, but my eye stopped on Ellie. She looked gracious, perhaps even aristocratic. Both in a school uniform, an informal gown, and in her swimsuit. Reflecting off the water, flecks of I can't read this. In any case, her life was certainly simpler than mine. I highly doubt that, especially if her grandfather's like head of the school or school board or something. In another life, our positions could be switched. Although, it could be in this life too. There was our complete opposite, Kagome. Well, Kagome. I really didn't have time to admire lustrous scenes with beautiful girls. I was about to leave when Ellie suddenly looked right at me and froze for a second. She suddenly cried out and waved her hands at me. This was the last thing I needed. All of her classmates turned their head in my direction. Now I was going to be known as a school pervert. I'd been a layabout, a hooligan, a slacker, but never a pervert. Anyway, this was not the best time to be ruminating. I crashed and broke into a run away from the pool. Stopping only at the school's entrance, I looked back only to see no pursuit. I was sure they couldn't have seen my face among the bushes, which meant it was too early to crown myself with the title of pervert. It could take some work yet to deserve it. I'd already finished changing my shoes and was about to go to class when a shout resounded from behind my back. Hey, you. In front of me stood Ellie, her breath heavy, and still clad in the swimsuit. When I started to think you were normal, you pick at girls. Well, to be fair, there were guys there too. I decided to play dumb. No idea we were talking about. Hi, by the way. Stop pretending, I just saw you at the pool. At the pool? What are we doing there? I don't even know how to swim. Well, I do actually, but not that well. Stop clowning around. If for some reason you think you'll come out clean, doubt I'll come out any cleaner than you. I looked down at her swimsuit. What? You pervert. She covered herself with her hands and hid behind the locker. The nearby students had already been casting puzzled glances at her, but after this started to circle around us at a respectable distance. So, swimming in a swimsuit is fine, but being in front of your male classmates is fine. But here, with me, not? You know you're not exactly in the right uniform for school, right? It's all your fault. I wasn't peeping you, I just passed by. Is it my fault our pool's there? Why are you watching then? Just daydreaming. Okay, fine, I'm a pervert. Happy now? Nikolai, lazy born of the house Anakin, the father of lust, king of hooligans, do-nothings, and future hippos. You're a strange one. Can't even anger you properly. Is that a compliment? Well, shit, I'll forgive you, but for the first and only time. I wonder how much this incident damaged her reputation as queen of the school. Or was she absolutely inviolable? Would it take something worse for everyone to see that the queen in fact... Oh my... no. Giggling, I entered my class. The Ellie incident lifted my spirits and distracted me from worrying thoughts of my coming conversation with Kagome. Meanwhile, her desk was empty. You're unusually happy early in the morning. Did something happen? Can't have anything from Kyosuke. Well, yeah, something did. If I were to say I saw Ellie in a swimsuit, he'd probably have a heart attack. And what was it? Nothing important. Keeping secrets, eh? Not a secret, it just doesn't matter. Sometimes it seems like you're hiding classified information. Really, why? Doesn't matter. You replied, mocking me. Okay, whatever. Hey, wait, that's it? Yep. I'll tell you if you want to bet with me. Kyosuke's eyes lit up. What's the bet? You have to keep quiet the whole day together. You're always like that. The lesson dragged on slowly, especially because I was replaying yesterday's events over and over in my head. She saw me, there's no way she didn't. And most probably she was the one to call the police. Let's say she had a reason for it, at least from her point of view. But if Kagome and this Akira Moriyuki really had nothing to hide, then why would she? It would have been much easier to come out and say that they've never heard of Shinji. At least it would have been less suspicious. As soon as the lesson was over, I jumped up and rushed to Kagome. I couldn't let her leave. We need to talk. What about? She made for a bad actress. Mitsu could teach her a thing or two. You know what I'm talking about. Don't put in an act, please. At least not in class. I don't. Kagome cast a quick glance at our classmates, but we hadn't caught their interest yet. Let's go. She nodded towards the door. Going to the roof? To the roof. A minute later, we're on the roof. I'm listening. The arms crossed over her chest and focused expression on her face left no doubt that she knew what the conversation was going to be about. Her hair fluttered beautifully in the wind, her silhouette resembling an ancient Japanese warlord, intently watching the course of a battle from a hill before they throw a spear through your chest. Well? She finally uttered with impatience. Are we just going to stand here? I woke from my daze and said, Can you explain your behavior yesterday? Kagome's face seemed to be frozen in stone. She looked like a statue. Fine, then I'll talk for you. Yesterday, you got scared about some suspicious guy trying to get into your restaurant when it was closed and called the police, right? Is this something you normally do? And who is Akira Moriyuki? Your father? Uncle? At the word father, Kagome's cheek twinged. She was completely unable to hide her true feelings, and this detached mask was the only solution she knew. Not like it helped much. Father, then. I see. Maybe you even know Akira Shinji? Oh, don't worry so much. I just need to talk to him about something. In any other situation, her cold glare would make me avert my eyes, but right now I was too pumped up. Drop it already. What are you hiding? I'm not hiding anything. Kagome finally answered with a slight strain in her voice. And then it dawned on me. What if it wasn't about Nikolai Anakin in particular? What if she was just scared? Listen, don't think I mean you have nothing to be afraid of. Afraid of you? You wish. I have no idea what your speech here was about. Oh, so that's how you talk now. I knew she was lying. And she knew I knew. The only question was if she had the confidence to stand her ground. And what was this seemingly quiet, unsociable girl hiding? Now, if that's all, Kagome headed the exit, but I appeared in her way. That's not all, Iromura-san. Please do deign to explain yourself. Or do you want to say you don't live on the waterfront in a restaurant called Gifts of the Sea, and that you didn't see me there yesterday? Exactly. Her response was unexpectedly calm. We came to a dead end. I couldn't start torturing her now, could I? After you? I took a step back and gestured towards the exit. Kagome quickly, but not too quickly, walked past without sparing me just much of another glance. One thing was clear, she had something to hide. And I was trying to figure out what my father had been doing at Kobayashi Corporation. Following Ichinose's lead, looking for this Akira Shinji, and in my search I ran into a classmate of mine. Maybe all this was a wondrous coincidence, and she acted like she did because she was scared. Doubt. I returned to class and was immediately interrogated by Kyosuke. Nick, where'd you go with Imura? None of your business, I snarled. You've chosen an odd target, Casanova. Kyosuke smirked and bumped at me in the shoulder. Bugger off. I snapped and he immediately disappeared into thin air. The next lesson started. Now I couldn't believe it. This couldn't be a coincidence. Kagome was somehow connected to Akira Shinji, or at least knew something. I decided to follow her today. The school day dragged on painfully slow. You're gonna have the cops called on you for this. In a normal world. Finally, the school day came to an end. The students started ready to get home. I can't English. I quickly threw my books into my backpack and ran out of the class. The last person I needed to meet now was Himitsu, and she was certainly about to show up. She would distract me, hinder me, and then Kagome would surely slip away. I hid behind a lamppost on the other side of the street, across from the school gates. The minutes of waiting felt terribly slow, my eyes darting to the clock over and over. According to it, barely any time had passed. Quite a girl she turned out to be. I lingered for a couple seconds more and quickly crossed the street. Something could have held Kagome back, but there she was. Yumura ducked out from behind the gates and headed towards the station at a calm pace. I virtually froze in place, my nerves and muscles strained to the limit, unable to move. I couldn't let her notice me. Meanwhile, she didn't look at me at all, as always. Well, that's better than nothing. At the moment, I didn't want to think that the whole time she'd been watching me. Well, why did I even assume I was partaking in this espionage of mine? Although being paranoid didn't automatically mean I wasn't being watched. The distance between the two of us was rapidly growing, like two cars in a math problem that left the same starting point and going in two different directions, so a line. But this problem also had a common point of destination, the sea of the gifts of the sea. At least that's what I wanted to believe. The fastest way to get to its district would be at the subway, and it's obvious what station Kagome would use. Whether I was playing private investigator alone, or was a game for two, she wasn't about to break into a run. Meanwhile, I had no problem choosing a different route and getting to the station before Kagome. The guy standing there, it looks like Jotaro from JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Of course, it didn't look as majestic as the Stalin's Empire style of the metro, and that's because the main point of the capital's transportation was functionality. Himitsu and I got to school on foot, so I bother with this human anthill all that often. I guess somewhere deep inside it scared me, as did many things Japanese. Starting with the fact that, standing in a carriage, I was of a good head and a half taller than the majority of people there. But this time around, the crowds of people were actually beneficial to me. It'd be harder for Kagome to notice me even if she were to look. This time I didn't have to wait long. Iwamura arrived at the station at instance right on time. Maybe she really was held back by something at school. I boarded the carriage next to hers, so far everything was going according to plan. We got off at the exact same station I'd been on yesterday. Gotcha. Now she wouldn't be able to talk her way out of it. For Christ's sake. Of course you lost it. How well-mannered of you. How? You know, I could have just ignored you, Kagome said thoughtfully. But you don't look like someone to be worried about, so I'm asking you straight, what do you want? There on the roof, I was interrogating her, convinced of my righteousness. And what now? I'd been following a schoolgirl for quite a while in Japan, no less. If she were to go to the police, my problems wouldn't look so important compared to the possibility of a harassment lawsuit on my hands. I've told you already. Or do you think I believed you just like that? A slight smile appeared on Kagome's face. Aren't you persistent? Of course, but I've already said everything I wanted. Why the performance then? You could have just called the police like yesterday. How did you even notice me so easily? It's a habit. A habit? Habit for what? You wouldn't understand. She suddenly lashed out. You don't get harassed every single day. Harassed? Why would anyone harass me? What are you even talking about? I flared up as well, even though I noticed Kagome grow sadder. Didn't think much of it. It doesn't matter. She stomped her foot, which for some reason very strongly reminded me of Himitsu. If only it was as simple with Kagome as it was with her. We aren't finished. We are. Wow, if you didn't know what was going on, you'd think they broke up or something. Kagome walked quickly along the waterfront, clearly heading to the gifts of the sea. I was trying not to lose her, lagging a couple meters behind. As you can see, I'm not going anywhere. What do you all want from me? Why can't you just leave me alone? It's not like my life isn't difficult enough without you. You have no idea how normal people live. What do I have to do with any of it? I'm actually a pretty normal guy. Listen, I understand it's not easy for you, those punks at school and all that, but believe me, I'm not like them at all. I'm not here to bully you. It just so happened I'm looking for this place. Do you think I'd mess with you if I had a choice? Yeah, sure, it's hard for you, and I'm just here having the time of my life. Or whatever, you don't want to talk, fine. Wait. Well? You first. Iwamura said stumbling and avoiding my eyes. Me first what? First, you tell me what you need from Akira Moriyuki or Akira Shinji. What's your business with them? At the moment, Kagome wasn't giving me any cause for concern, so why couldn't I tell her the truth? Or at least part of it. I recently found out that Akira Shinji used to work with my father and another man at Kobayashi Corporation. I have some questions to ask him. And what are those questions? Sorry, I don't want to say it's none of your concern, although maybe that's the case, it's just... I don't want to put you in danger, but to be honest, I didn't really care about her. These thoughts evoked a vicious feeling of shame somewhere deep inside of me. It's personal information. Oh, so, picking my brains for info is okay, but your highness may keep any secrets he pleases from the pitiful peasants. That's not what I meant at all. Fine. I recently learned there was a lot I didn't know about my father's work. I received a strange note, strange people calling me in the middle of the night, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I managed to find my father's old colleague. He recommended me to look for Akira Shinji, who's supposed to know more. I know, a call? What are you trying to drag me into? I'm not dragging you in anything. Just a minute ago, you knew exactly nothing about any of it and were perfectly fine. Well, that's a dumb thing to say. I mean, you have nothing to fear. You're not connected to me or my father in any way. Yes, but what have I done to deserve this? I am kind of connected to Akira, both of them. I gave Kagome a surprised look. Was it really so simple? But she looked like she'd already said everything she wanted and was just now intently studying the waterfront's pavement. Iwamura-san. Akira Shinji is my father. He really did work for the Kobayashi Corporation, but then he was laid off and had to help my granddad now. Akira Moriyuki in the restaurant. What's the secret about that you couldn't tell me before? Just because. Kagome scowled. Well, why do you and your dad have different surnames? He and my mother broke up when I was little, and I've been living with her under her maiden name. But my mom died recently and I moved in with my dad. I'm very sorry. Yeah, sure you are. Nora grinned. I mean, you're right. I didn't know your mother, don't know your father, or even really you. But what do you want me to say? Would you rather I keep silent instead of showing fake sympathy? It's just the proper thing to do. Kagome wasn't ready to agree with anything, ever. But she knew I was right here, so she just rewarded my remark and kept talking. I don't know anything about my father's work, but he's not that old. I'm sure he'd found a job in his field, but no one would hire him? I guessed. She nodded. This is all very strange. Well, thank you, Sherlock Holmes. Might I be your Dr. Watson? She pulled the tips of her hair into her nose, making them look like a mustache. I involuntarily smiled. Well, if you want to be Watson, I'm okay with it. Onwards we go to Gifts of the Sea. No. Kagome responded, immediately returning to her normal disposition. Why not? There's nothing for you to do there. I'll talk with Father and tell you everything afterward. Don't you think this whole thing concerns me a bit too? What are you supposed to do there? You don't know anything yourself. Well, that's true, but then that's that. See ya. Kagome, wait. Which was more natural to her, I wondered. The physical contact or being addressed by her first name? Sorry, I didn't mean to. Come on, it's not that bad. You aren't gonna leave me alone, are you? She asked quietly. As you can see. Fine, let's go. Was she bullied by her parents or something? The plot thickens. Just like my lack of English, getting to the Gifts of the Sea took a bit more time than I expected. Probably because yesterday I had gotten back to the station mostly at a running pace. Did you really have to call the police yesterday? Kagome shrugged. We may have common interest here, so don't act like that. She raised her head and gave me a surprised look. What do you mean, act like what? Whatever, forget it. I waved my hand so hard it actually hit a cart that had been passing by, and a fat fish flopped onto the road, slid down the pavement, and only miraculously didn't hit anyone. Gosh dang it. Are you alright in the head? The girl burst out laughing with a genuine, heartfelt laugh, momentarily forgetting everything that happened between the two of us and anything that could still happen. Embarrassed, I turned away, feeling myself blush. Here, for you. I stretched out the fish to Kagome. A nice mackerel, thanks. She knowingly examined the fish. Just don't expect me to cook something out of it. I didn't really. You got a friend for that. Catherine? Catherine again? The one with red hair. Did she die or something? How do you know about Himitsu? By virtue of not being blind. Well, I guess. You must be good at cooking too. She gave a short reply and immediately added, Here we are. Today, the restaurant of Kagome's grandfather turned out to be open and packed with people. Well, I haven't exactly earned a treat, but I'm really hungry. I hope I can at least get some food at your place if I pay for it. Wait here. I'll talk with Father and come back. Your wish is my command, mistress. I sat down on the border stones, drooling at the smells that reached me from inside the restaurant. At first glance, she didn't have it that bad. Her grandfather owned a restaurant. Her father had a dreamy What? Her father had held a decently high position at Kobayashi until recently. Then why was she treated so badly? Even if you can't stand up for yourself, the social status always helps. She wasn't at the level of the spoiled douches from her school, sure, but also nowhere near the bottom of society. A penny for your thoughts, young man? Addressing me was a pink-cheeked, nosely drunk, quite short old man. Just waiting for someone here. Girlfriend, eh? The smile on his face seemed to grow even wider as the narrow line of his eyes almost completely disappeared. You could say so. A friend in need. Heh, young blood. I caught myself thinking that I reacted quite calmly to him. Probably just because I had other things on my mind. I was about to go into the gifts to see when its doors flung open and Kagome ran out of them, clearly agitated. They took my father. What? Who took him? She looked at me, aghast, her breath wavy. They took father. Who took your father? Took where? It's you, it's all your fault. Hold on, mate. And think logically, if it's my fault, why'd I put on this act? But calling for a voice of reason was useless. Come on, think about it. I'd be the primary suspect on top of it. I was threatened too. I just wanted to talk. I didn't want to scare you. Sorry. I made a low bow, Japanese bow. It could be that this happened because of your father, because of me. Grandpa says two decently dressed men came today. I immediately remembered the men who'd been following me a couple days ago. They asked me to talk to father. Grandpa doesn't know what they talked about, then Dad left with them and told Grandpa not to worry. How could I possibly not worry? I took a moment to think. Kagome was clearly right. To say there was a reason to worry would be putting it lightly. At the moment I was convinced everything that happened recently was linked. The note, the call, Ichinose, the kidnapping of Kagome's father. They were hiding something and covering their tracks well. But then why didn't they just kill me? Who would pay attention to the disappearance of an orphan schoolboy? No, there was clearly something more important going on. We have to call the police, Kagome said resolutely. If things are as you say, I don't think the police will help us in any way here. What would you even know? Think for yourself. We're talking about the Kobayashi Corporation, understand? They've got the whole of Japan under their control. I'm gonna call them and you can do whatever you want. Try to stop her. Hold on a second, I'm telling you only make the situation worse. We need to wait and think it through. I felt an inexplicable desire to do my own thing. I was absolutely sure she was wrong. Wait. I grabbed her arm again and jerked her to the street. Let go, don't touch me. Her voice was quiet, even too quiet against the drunken hubbub of the restaurant. I understand how you feel, but acting on emotion will only make things worse. I promise we'll find your father. I tried doing all this and all. Kagome stopped trying to break free. Fine. In reality, we just got common interest. We find your father, he answers my questions, but right now, we need you to calm down. She stood pressed against the doors, her head hanging low. Do you understand what I'm saying? Kagome made a slight nod. What do we do now? Oh, so now it was us. Well, I didn't really want to draw attention to her choice of words right now. Did your grandfather say anything else? He's not young, she replied after a long pause. He gets things wrong, if at all. If not for me and a couple other employees, the restaurant would have long gone under. Really? Looks to be thriving from the outside. Kagome smiled sadly. But still, it all started with you, she said in a serious tone, though not angrily. Post hoc ergo proctor hoc. Whatever's happening right now is just the consequence of something bigger. Me, you, your father, we're all just pawns in some game. Do you even hear yourself? Pawns in some games? You're talking like, I don't know, I don't want anything to do with it. My life isn't sunshine and rainbows as it is. You might be directly at fault here, but if only you'd kept away from us. I was looking at her and just couldn't understand why she wasn't crying. If Himitsu were in her place, the tears would all have been flowing like a river at our first meeting at the station. Even Catherine wouldn't have managed to hold on for this long. To tell the truth, I could hardly understand how I managed to retain a seemingly cool head myself. Meanwhile, Kagome, yeah, she was angry, she acted irrationally and even foolishly, but at the same time, she persistently held on her own. It may not have been a direct fight with a looming threat, not a charge with a drawn sword, but this reaction was more akin to a silent protest of an ancient cliff. Beaten by hurricanes, whipped by the winds, it would remain in its place even 1,000 years later. Without advancing even a single step forward, and without surrendering a single centimeter. She was used to this life, and I'd climbed into her orderly world, bringing chaos and destruction. Fine. You're right, I shouldn't have gotten you involved in all this. I turned around and was about to leave, but Kagome stopped me. Oh, no you don't. If you got me involved, you should take responsibility. Do you have something in mind? Yeah, I've got an idea. You were talking about Kobayashi Corporation, right? Then that's where we'll start. But how do you intend to? Meet me tomorrow in the park across from their office downtown. But, and now I need to go to work. How can you even think about that at a time like this? I was genuinely surprised. What about it? Who will help Grandpa if not me? Father wasn't of much help. He was good at abstract ideas and theoretical sciences, but when it came to slicing cabbage, Kagome let out a heavy sigh. Tomorrow at noon. Yeah, okay. She disappeared behind the door, and I heard drunken shots of Kagome-chan. The windows of my house blurred with a dim light. It was about time I changed the bulb. Nikolai? Did she have some kind of detector tuned to me, I wondered? We haven't seen each other all day. She started as soon as I came in. Yeah, sorry, I saw your note. I had some things to take care of today. Even I could tell how implausible my lie sounded. Come, dinner's on the table. She said in her usual didactic tone as if the events of the past week never happened. How are you doing? Fine. She didn't even look at me. In a different situation, I'd probably have tried to continue the conversation, find out why she was acting like that. But in this case, it was clear. How long could Kimitsu keep going like this? Well, it was entirely possible I'd be killed before she'd give up. And we had agreed to go on a date too. It's very good. In reality, I wasn't even paying attention to what I was eating. I'm glad. She responded as indifferently as before. So, what? Are you gonna keep acting like this? Acting like what? You know what I mean. I don't. And then I realized this was just her way of being upset with me. Mitsu really didn't have things to be upset about. On the other hand, I didn't have to report my every step to her. You know, you're right. Something happened in the last several days. It's best to tell her now. Nobody knew what could happen next. And forewarned is forearmed. It could be that I wasn't the only one in danger, that those close to me were too. And I had nobody closer than Himitsu. You must have noticed. I'm being watched. To be exact, I've came to the attention of mysterious people or company. They didn't threaten me directly, but there's reason to believe I'm in danger. Nikolai. Wait, let me finish. It was hard to look her in her eyes, even though for the first time in a long time I was telling the truth. It's all connected to my father's work, or I think it is. And while it's probably not even about me, but there's something bigger going on and I just ended up in somebody's way. Himitsu suddenly repeated, growing even ever gloomier. I'll talk to Dad, he'll help. Don't tell anyone about this. I shouted unexpectedly, even to myself. She flinched. You shouldn't, these people, they can do anything. They've got everything bought and paid for. How can we? I found a man who used to work with my father, and now he disappeared. He was taken because of me, understand? I didn't want to tell her about Kagome. Didn't want to drag Himitsu deeper into all this. You might be in danger too. If I'm with you, I'm not afraid of anything. She tried to smile. Are you kidding me? How can I protect you if I can't even protect myself? I had to calm down. Sorry. Maybe it's not really that serious. I may be overthinking things. But in any case, don't tell anyone about this. Got it? Himitsu nodded. It's important. She wouldn't tell anyone, even on the pain of death. Alright, got it. And most importantly, don't worry, I didn't want to scare you. I'm glad you told me the truth. Himitsu came up to me and hugged me. I carefully caressed her head and pressed her close. For a moment, I felt a burning desire for everything how it was, for my former life to return. How could I ever think it was boring? I just wanted to protect you. Himitsu trembled in my arms, crying. Come on, what is it? Why does it have to be you? You don't deserve any of this. Your parents, Catherine, and now this. It's been a while since I thought about her. Yeah, I'm having the time of my life. I guess that's just my luck. Himitsu didn't have time to finish, interrupted by the telephones ringing. In the silence of the kitchen, it sound seemed like a thunder of calming storm. Still distant, but already inescapable. I need to answer. Don't worry. They wouldn't call me every day. They got a secret organization there, not a telephone station, you know. I gently slipped out of Himitsu's embrace and walked to the hall. My voice didn't tremble, but I felt myself shrink inside. Ryunosuke-san. Nikolai. Yes, Ryunosuke? I'm listening. It was Himitsu's father. Is my daughter with you? Sometimes I really couldn't understand why he was letting Himitsu spend so much time at my place. Surely he could find a better son-in-law. Yeah, should I call her? No. Just tell her to go home. Alright, definitely. I hung up the phone and returned to the kitchen. Your father called, he wants to see you. But I can't now, I'm... What, going to guard me? Don't. I'll be right. I'll close all the doors for the night. First, but tomorrow I'll come early in the morning. Yeah, about tomorrow. I got some things that care to me. Fine. Tomorrow I'm meeting with someone else who can help me. We're meeting in the middle of the day in the city center. I'll be alright. I'll go with you. God, here we go again. They're in a difficult situation, right? If we come together, it'll be suspicious. It won't take long. I'll call you as soon as I'm back. Fine. But remember, I'll be waiting. Yes, ma'am. I saluted and smiled. Trouble sleeping comes from idleness was something my father used to say. When you're so exhausted at the end of the day, say that there isn't any strength left to even brush your teeth. Insomnia is never a problem. When I woke up, the clock hands were showing 11:45. Apparently I was so tired yesterday I forgot to set the alarm. I don't know how punctual Kagome was, but I absolutely couldn't get there late. Be quite something if I did, to drag her into this and then not even show up. It was no less than half an hour's trip to the city center, and I needed to at least dress myself and visit the toilet before that. 5 minutes later, I ran out of the house at breakneck speed. How long would Kagome wait for me? Considering her character, 5 minutes. I ran like the wind, dodging the few people I came across the way. The streets weren't nearly populated on Saturday noon as they were weekdays. I managed to somehow get into the right running pace so as to neither lose my breath nor my speed. Did I dress up right? Maybe I should have put on something more formal. I definitely had a black outfit for my parents' funeral. No, I looked stupid in it. Everyone might be wearing suits in the business district, but I was clearly too young. And the color would be too mournful as well. A gray one would fit better if I wanted to disguise myself as an office rat. Although, in a few years I'd probably have to merge with the indiscreet mass of these rats running to sinking ships in the morning and scurrying to their mortgaged holes in the evening. They were all living in some kind of economic bubble doomed to pop one day. People take loans to live better, work to pay the interest, take new loans to repay the old ones. The real value of money had long been replaced by zeros and ones in computer memory, after having once replaced barter. It's more like in a sense, they reflected my share of the collective wealth of Japan. But wealth itself doesn't appear out of thin air, it's created by humans. How many proprietors like that consider themselves rulers of the world? What would I think had I been born into a rich family, I wondered, like Ellie for example. On the other way around, what if my life had turned out like Iwamura's? Under otherwise equal conditions and the lack of prospects, my main problem at the moment was my own self-loathing while Kagome had to clash with real adult life every day. I doubted she had a bank account she could always take whatever money she needed from what having to work. Finally, the skyscrapers of the business district appeared up around the corner. I quickly crossed the road, almost hit by a car, and entered the park we agreed to meet in. Kagome was sitting on a bench, anxiously turning her head left and right. Hello, sorry that I'm late. I was panting and able to talk properly. 40 minutes. She pointed her finger at her clock. Being late is 5-10 minutes. By 40, it's like you didn't come at all. I looked at the time, it really was 12:40. I was sure I was a better runner. But you're still here. What if I'd left? But you didn't? Yeah, because I knew you wouldn't manage to get here on time. Why's that? She didn't respond, just waved her hand at the clock once again. Alright, fine. It was an accident. Usually I what? Skip school, sleep until 3 p.m. after a drinking spree, and can't remember what I had talked to Mitsui about? Well, maybe I'd gotten somewhere on time a couple occasions in the past couple of years, and what of it? Just sorry. Kagome looked under her brows and smirked. Listen, enough already. Are we gonna keep arguing over who's to blame, or are we gonna do something useful? What's your plan? Plan? I thought you had one. Here we go. I said in Russian and slowly sank down to the bench next to Kagome. Weren't you following me yesterday? And didn't you make me come here? Wait a minute, it was your idea. But it doesn't matter, the initiative was yours. For starters, let's calm down. What do we know? I'm being threatened by people. Your father's being threatened by people and basically got kidnapped. Moreover, here in front of us is the main office of the Kobayashi Corporation. Let out a thoughtful sniff. And that's where we'll go. Yeah, and then what? We'll be lucky to get kicked out. I have no intention of just sitting here. You can do whatever you want. Kagome jerked herself up from the bench, paying no attention to me, and rapidly marched towards the Kobayashi Corporation building. Hey, wait! No other choice, I ran after her. The inside of the building looked even more luxurious than I could imagine. And this is where we'll leave off. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. I wonder what's gonna happen next. Maybe he'll have to punch someone else in the face and make poor life decisions. Preferably. Hope to see you in the next video. And as always, goodbye.